Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Magical Coffee Hour. I hope you all are having a good day, even for a Monday. I know I am. It's been a busy day here. Um, Thank you for joining us. We are live on Rumble and over at YouTube currently. And with us moving into fall, uh, October coming around. I'm going to be doing a few videos for the local supporters and members, detailing some of the ways that I specifically do my bi-yearly shadow work. I do one of my massive shadow work path workings during October, and I've always talked about them, and we did the intro videos and the shadow work, but we've never gone really deep into it because honestly, it gets a little sketchy, some of the things I would have to talk about and how I do it. So I am going to be doing that over at Locals. So if you are seeing this, consider joining us over at the Locals community. You can find that at workingdragonmystic.com. You'll see Working Dragon Mystic Layer Community. Just click that tab. It'll send you right over to us. You can join as a member for free, or you can support us, become a paid supporter over there. It unlocks a bunch of supporter only content and everything like that. And I'll be honest, some of these conversations will probably be supporters only because I'm going to be diving into some of the. Um, I'll be honest, it's some of the stuff I do have trouble talking about in public. So it's some of the topics where I get a little shy. Um, but is what it is. We got to get through this because it is about improving ourselves and helping each other, right? And Immortal, thank you very much for putting those links in there for everybody. He put both the Locals channel and the Magic School, the online school. So check both of those out if you're interested in Dragon Magic or any of the courses we got over there. They're very affordable. Great way to support us as well. But Locals is, yeah, we're trying to turn this into a fully supporter funded only thing so we don't have to worry about the whole monetization problems and that kind of crap happening. So consider it. Magic Hour Movies, good evening to you as well. Gabriel, good to see you. Karma, good to see you. So now, when we talk about shadow work, right? One of the things I've noticed with shadow work, there's a lot of words popping up in shadow work that I do honestly have to wonder or question whether or not a good chunk of those are actually going to be helpful. Um, let's see. Paranormal investigations, their technology is always, yeah, I mean, most shows and most paranormal, yeah, their stuff will mess up. Um, it's a theory that spirits use the energy from the tech. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah. Because they're doing, like, they're talking about safe shadow work. They're talking about easy shadow work. And if you look at the title, I titled this as basics. I didn't put the word easy. And there's a reason I didn't put the word easy. And one of the reasons I didn't is, in all honesty, if you're truly doing shadow work, it's not easy. It isn't. You are going to be wrestling your demons and your trauma. There's no easy way to do that. Okay. There is getting your feet wet and kind of softly going in, but it's still going to be difficult. Even if you're just sticking a toe in, if you're doing it correctly, it will be difficult, right? Um, so if it's not easy, if it's not difficult, and if it's not challenging, I would ask yourself, are you being honest? Are you being truthful? Are you actually looking into this? Because in shadow work, it is about finding fault. It is about finding our flaws. It is about finding our traumas. It is about finding our fears. It is finding our weaknesses. It is finding all these things that we may or may not know is there, but are. Um, Gabriel, I believe I've answered that question for you before once, but so technically speaking, we do not know whether or not magic has a limitation. We don't know that. What we do know is that any magic that has shown reliable results has shown to definitely have limitations within it. Though there are many, many people that would say we're only struggling with our current understanding of magic, and that may be possible. But at the same time, do understand that unless you can prove it doesn't have a limitation, you have to initially assume that there is most likely a limitation. Now, you can research and you try and push beyond that limitation, but you have to understand that. And one of the reasons I do take this stance is because, well, I'll be honest, there's been what about 10 spiritual healers who's tried to kill my ass because oh, their healing is absolutely divine and whoop whoop, you're healed. And it was bullshit. None of them healed me. Um, so there's a lot of people who will take that stance in faith or even in a snake oil salesman manner, and that gets dangerous. And it's good to temper experimentation and a push and a drive to move past your current limitations, but you have to do so within reason. You have to within reason. Otherwise, you're going to put yourself in a bad situation. Perfect example. I have seen mage orders and Wiccan covens talk about no limitations to the point where someone sold off everything they could in order to help another individual. And then they did spell working to get back what they sold off 3 times because, you know, that's what they say. And guess what? They didn't get 1 penny back. They were broke. So I can't on here as a practitioner, especially one who believes in results, because I've told you I'm a faithless bastard. I've said it over and over. And I cannot tell you it is definitely without limits. In fact, if I was to go by the results of my research and the research of thousands of other mages I've spoken with and compared notes with, I would actually state that the limitations might actually be applied as long as we are in the point of being physical beings. Anyways, now for shadow work, let's try and stay on topic a little bit here, people. Let's stay on topic. So yeah, that's what we're going to get into, Karma. As I was saying earlier, shadow work is not easy. If it's easy, assume you did it wrong. Because like I said, you are dealing with your fears, your traumas, pain, you're dealing with shame, all these things you are dealing with. You're even dealing with like hardcore addictions that you didn't even know were there can be a problem. So shadow work is all of those things. Now, in the video I did, one of the things that I recommend for beginners to shadow work on is to get a journal. Get a brand new journal. Don't use your magic journal. Don't use your sleep journal. Don't use a journal you care about because this needs to be a journal you're ready to destroy. Okay. You need to be able to destroy it. So make sure you get a journal that is dedicated for shadow work and shadow work only. I usually recommend the composition notebooks. They're usually $1.50, $2 at Walmart. They're really great. Get the wide ruled if you need them. If you write itty bitty tiny, get college ruled. And what you need to do, one of the first places you start, okay? I would highly recommend trying to get yourself in a clear, calm mind. Maybe do a little meditation first. Lay that journal out in front of you, okay? And I want you to go through and I want you to literally think every nasty thing you think about yourself. Let those thoughts flow. If you have a negative thought about you, put it on that paper. If you're unhappy with your weight, put it on that paper. If you're unhappy with the shape of your head, put it on that paper. If you're unhappy with the way that you handle the situation, put it on that paper. If you're unhappy because you feel this emotion when this thing is around, put it on that paper. I don't care how trivial or how ugly it is. This is one of the times where you are supposed to be just tearing yourself to shreds. You are supposed to be finding every fault and flaw in yourself and putting it on that paper. And I'm not lying. Um, and one thing that I will say is when you write it, feel it. When you write it, feel it. Whatever it is that is. If you're thinking of a fear, if you're arachnophobic and you're putting that on the paper, I want you to feel the fear of spiders crawling on you. That's what I want you to feel. So when I say write it, I want and feel it, I want you to feel it. This is not an easy thing by any means because this can quickly spiral out of control. Okay. So when we do shadow work, we have to be aware of our own personal limitations because if you spiral into a depression and you can't pull yourself out, you're not going to be able to finish the shadow work. Okay. So, yes, what I just said about putting every negative thought about yourself on that piece of paper can be a horrible experience. It is needed, but you also have to have a bit of understanding. This is why I also say shadow work is not the place you start your practice. You need to do some other things to learn about yourself and gain some discipline before you do this. Because going in undisciplined, you're going to be screwing the pooch. So do remember that. Now, once you have this list, okay, I usually try to tell a starting student, usually your first one is going to be your biggest one, not always. I've been doing this for 20 years, I'll be honest. Every year, my list seems to be new, but almost equally large because you're never going to be done with shadow work. Shadow work is an ever-going process. You will never be free of it in truth. Just by the sheer fact that you're going to be living life, new things will come up. So every problem you got today, great. Even if you could solve them today, you're going to have new problems tomorrow. That's why I do it twice a year. And I have been working really hard to trim those back. Okay. Now, once you have that list, now the real hard part starts because each one of those is now a meditation that you really need to do. You really need to focus on each one of those things. Sit down, and what I do first is I look at those and I ask, why is this thing on this list? What is it about this thing? Is this something I have control over truly? Yes or no? Or is this something that I don't have control over? Yes or no? And ask yourself why it bothers you in truth. Like I mentioned, the shape of your head. Shape of head is not something you have control over, right? The shape of your head is the shape of your head. But why does it bother you? And truth be told, the shape of your head is almost practically meaningless in truth, but some people do have an issue with this. This goes into your self-image, essentially, is where it's going to dive into. The shape of your head's not the problem. The problem is your self-image. And you just keep following that deeper. And once you know it's self-image, then you can start meditating on self-image. Start wrestling with and finding all the things that tie into that and why this is a problem for you. And facing them head on and embracing them. And as well as when you find the negative ones, the ones that, let's say your self-image is bad because you want to look like this other girl in school or at work or whatever. You have this, that's not you. That's not you. You need to learn to be you. Um, and you need to understand and accept who you are and actually make peace with those things and actually drop the um it's not vanity, that's not the word I'm looking for. It's not even lust. The lust, I guess, would work. But trying to desire to live someone else's life. You gotta be careful with those things. They are really tricky. Now, let's at the same time, okay, bit behind the curtain here. Let's be a little honest. Let's look at weight. Okay, everyone here knows I'm working on getting in shape. That is true. And I've been doing a lot of things, and part of my shadow working actually comes into weight and some of the things I found. And there's actually definitely some emotional and trauma issues that are tied to my weight. Truth be told, this year, I'm going to be super hardcore diving into those issues on my weight. And this is actually one of the reasons, like when people's like, Drake, you don't need to lose weight, you're fine. That pisses me the fuck off. Look, I don't care what you think. The truth of the matter is, if you take blood tests, if you check me metabolically, if you do a scan, I'm not healthy, right? I'm healthy in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of ways I'm very much not healthy, and I need to lose the weight, period. Okay. So the healthy at any size, just fuck off. I don't want to hear it. But one of the things that it used to be is I actually cared. I cared about, I didn't want to be a big guy, but I dealt with some of my issues on that. And now I really don't care about the looks. In fact, I've actually found a style and everything where by and large, I get compliments every time I leave the house. Still surprises me. Don't fully understand it, but hey, I take the compliments, right? At the same time, at the same time, I have a wife, I have family, and I want to be around and I want to be healthy and I want to be able to take care of them and I want to be able to do things. And I am getting up in years and I need to consider those things. And I want to be healthy. Okay. Straight up, my weight loss is all about health now. It has nothing to do with appearances. There are a few perks, I won't lie. It'll be easier to buy shirts, but that's okay. But I've also know that I can do everything right on one side. But if I don't deal with the mental and emotional, that stuff is not going to work because I'm going to make progress and mental emotional days are just going to stink me back. So if I want to get the weight off, I have to do that. And that's going to be a really huge, hardcore part of my shadow work this year. It really is. Because there is a lot of mental and emotional things from my childhood that I didn't realize were there. Like there are things that came up by meditating on the results of my shadow work earlier this year. So, that's why I say it's a constantly churning thing. And I do meditate on them quite often and look at them. And I'm constantly examining my life and how that affects. And now that I've identified them, I actually want to work directly to overcome them. And in truth, in part of what I'm going to do is I'm still going to make a list. I'm still going to do a meditation to try and find new things. But the bulk of my October shadow work is going to be getting over those very specific wounds, ideals, or thought patterns that are killing me, quite literally killing me. And it's going to be a hard shadow working year for me. I have no doubts on that one. I'm not looking forward to it. But at the same time, I kind of am looking forward to it because getting through there is going to improve me throughout my life. And you can do this through other things. Like I'm talking specifically about my weight, right? I actually thought alcohol might have been one of the bigger problems I had, but like when I was like, you know what, alcohol's a problem, I stopped drinking, just hands down, stop, no alcohol. I haven't had alcohol in a very long time. Don't plan on it, don't want it. So I quickly found out alcohol wasn't the problem. It didn't have the hold on me I thought it might have. Anytime I think something might have a hold on me, I get rid of it. Very easy. So, I had a thought. It didn't pan out, so I had to keep digging, and I'm going to keep digging. Now, these are the things that I'm going to be working on. That's not to say everyone who has some form of body composition issue, that's necessarily the case. I mean, I would say shadow work can help. There's always going to be some things. Some things you should probably see a doctor. Like if I had already been diagnosed with diabetes or something else, I'd be getting a doctor's help on this. If I had, or the other side of the fence, anorexia, you should be seeing getting help for that as well. So let's see here. Shadow work, I have to start. What entities would be best for beginners? Honestly, Immortal, for starting out with shadow work, I would not work with entities. Honestly, that's actually a good question. And starting out, I would not work with entities. And here's why. Do you remember earlier on when I started talking, I mentioned you've got to be careful of that slippery slope that can be that depression spiral. Okay. Now, I am someone who has fallen into a very, very deep, and dark depressing state in my life more than once. And I've had to pull myself out. Pulling oneself out is never easy. And for some people, let's be honest, they don't come out, and that is a sad reality. So if you are trying to improve yourself, you cannot improve if you're taking 3 steps forward and 12 backward. You can't do it. So you have to understand what your limitations are. The problem is entities don't fully understand human limitations. They understand solving human problems. And if you contact an entity to help you with shadow work, they're going to help you with shadow work. And by that, they're going to start literally digging up everything at the bottom, right on the surface of what is your shadow. And think of shadow work like, have you ever seen a documentary? Expedition Unknown's a good show that shows this, where they're diving and they get to the bottom and they can't see anything. There's just so much silt in the water. They're blindly having to reach around and feel around to find anything, or there's just no light. They dive so deep, there's just no flipping light, right? Shadow work is that. As you start to look, as you start to examine, you're going to be kicking up that silt that has all settled. And it's going to get harder and harder to see. That silt is the emotional impact the work has on you, and ultimately depression. Because not only silt, but you can get lost in just darkness. Just darkness. And you start losing sight of why you're doing this, the benefits of doing this, and get to the everything is pointless mindset. So they're constantly trying to turn that stuff up so you can deal with it. But when you're first starting out, I would not do that, because you can get overwhelmed very, 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 very quickly. That's why I use the journal method for starting out. Okay? Yes, it's harsh. I agree. I'm not going to say it's not harsh. I'm not going to say the journal is nice. But I'm also not going to say you should be nice. Because if you want to shadow work to work, you have to be honest. You have to be truthful. Okay? You have to admit it. If you're not going to be able to do it. This is one of the reasons a lot of the newer shadow working methods are working less and less to not at all, because they're trying to be participation trophy shadow working, basically. You can most definitely join, Zazie. Come on in. So you have to be very harsh, very raw, very honest with yourself. And that is hard. A lot of us, especially some of the younger generation, you guys have, I don't even blame the younger generation. I blame the people who raised them, because they've never been held to account. They've never been told to look in a mirror. Right? They've been given excuses for practically everything. Not all, but most, unfortunately. But it is a habit that can be built, because self-examination is one of the things toward self-improvement and self-empowerment. Now, notice we made the list, right? We examined the list. Everything on that list, we went down and asked, why is this a real problem? Is it something you can do something about? Yes or no? And then the meditations go into that. If it's not something you can do about, what is causing the problem in truth? Because if you can't do anything about it, where's the actual problem? Why is it there? Spend some time with it, roll it around. Yes, body image can be an issue. Yes, I'm 6'2". Yes, I hate being 6'2", to be honest with you. That is something that popped up in my shadow work in the past. I absolutely despise being 6'2". At the same time, it took me a few weeks of meditating on this whole height issue I had. But I actually realized that, there's pros and cons to any height. 6'2", yeah, it has its problems, but it also has its advantages. And I had to work through that, because my initial problems with being 6'2" were surface level issues that were, honestly, they were kind of silly. Not always silly, but kind of silly when I really started breaking them down, even laughable. So I can't change my height, but that was, I worked through that. Now, weight. That's something I can change. That is something controllable. And I had to actually find out what was there. Originally, yeah, looks were an issue for me. I had a little bit of vanity there. I'm not going to lie about it. I did have some vanity. Dealt with the vanity. Something else is still itching. And, we've slowly been finding those things, if that makes some sense. And every time you meditate and every time you work on a problem, it's going to get a little better. Will it be solved in one shadow working? Probably not. Just as, like I'm telling you, there's things I'm working on that's been multiple years in the working. Many of you know cameras. I'm absolutely terrified of cameras. Still am, but I can actually get on here live and do well thanks to shadow working. Some fears you can learn to face and to live with. They're just there. Like, I have a phobia of spiders. I do have arachnophobia. But instead of jumping and running away or shooting at them with a shotgun or other gun, I've gotten to where I can just deal with spiders. Okay, I don't like them. They still creep me the flip out. They will still startle me, but I have learned to gain control of that fear. It's still fear, but I've gained control of it, if that makes sense. All right, let's check and see if we got some questions in here. Let's see, Immortal. Yes, you can also join us at Locals. Which there's a link toward the top of the chat for Locals. And if you're a member of Locals, you can also access our Discord. Magic Hour Movies. Do you have advice for helping friends that can't seem to do shadow work or get out of this depression? Although it's not my responsibility, I still want to help. Okay, Magic Hour Movies. Here's a harsh, unfortunate. As someone who loves to help people, as someone who is protective by nature, I say this. So understand that. Like, I have literally taken bullets for people who wanted to hurt me. That's how protective I can be. You cannot help someone who does not want to help themselves. You can't. Shadow work is not something someone else can do for you. Shadow work is not something that we can even actually help one another with. The best you can do is be supportive of the work they're doing while reminding them to not fall into the precipice of darkness. Like, I have a friend that tells me every time they're going to do shadow work, and they have me check on them on the regular. And I do that. That's the most I can do. I can't do the work for them. I can be a sounding board if they want me to. But the truth of the matter is, if they don't want to do the work, you can't do it for them. And sadly, there are a lot of people out there. They struggle with depression. They struggle with a lot of things. And though they don't like the situation, they also are not yet motivated to change it. And when that's the case, you're not really going to be able to do much to facilitate that. The best you could possibly try is to do a spell working to actually give them the motivation to begin that transition and that change. Because what that does is that gives them motivation. It gives them, the motivation, and they understand that motivation there is there for change, and the choice is there. The choice is still there. It's their choice. So you're not fooling around with free will. But that's the best you can do. They still have to reach out and take the choice, even once you give them the motivation, if that makes sense. And I wish that wasn't the case. Let's see. I hate being 5'6", so let's trade. You're going to hit your head a lot more at 5'2", trust me. We do answer questions toward the end after the main topic, Zazzy. We do. So once we open the floor for that, you can definitely ask your questions. We also do have a super chat live, so that if you have an important question and it's getting missed, you can put that in there and it flashes it up. Make sure I see it. Any super chat. because we have had questions get lost in here. And as long as the question's on topic, I'll even answer it while we're discussing the topic. Um, so yeah. See, Zazzy Ben, I want to know how I found love this year. Um, I don't recommend love magic at all. And with divinations, every choice we make of every day alters the pathway to the future in some measure. So no one's going to accurately be able to tell you exactly how you're going to find love, because actually love in of itself by definition can be a vague term. So I would not be answering that one particularly. If you are looking for someone, I would get out there in places doing things you like, whether it's hiking, whether it's biking. Look for public groups, not dating groups. Just look for public activity groups if you are having trouble finding things to do, and talk to people and start a conversation and get to know them. Get to know them as a person. Don't just go in looking for love. Hands down, the truest love you'll find will be found in a mutual understanding of genuine, deep friendships. Vicky Drake, I'm really interested in your thoughts about intrusive thoughts. I don't mean, haha, I want to dye my hair pink. I mean, actually detrimental, scary thoughts, more serious impulse control as shadow work. So yeah, intrusive thoughts definitely are going to pop up during shadow work. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Especially depending on the trauma you're dealing with. So there are a lot of injuries that I have sustained through my life. Um, and dealing with the trauma of those injuries, the thought process of self-inflicted injuries did creep in, and it was a struggle. So you have to be careful, because some of these are definitely going to be harder. And that's the reason, like, for one, I'm talking about this easier stuff. The stuff I do yearly is not anything basic or beginner level. That's the stuff that gets really harsh. The journaling one, you're putting it in the journal. You can easily close the journal. You can step away from it. And you should only deal with one thing at a time that you put on that page, just one thing at a time. And the reason you deal with the one thing at a time is so you are aware, so that when those intrusive thoughts start prying in, you can deal with them. You can actually, you set aside your time for meditation, you set your time to work, and you want to close with a good grounding centering. And if you do any ritual work, a good cleansing ritual like the Dragon's Flame ritual, or the um, lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, is also a great thing to close out with too. And then you want to go do something fun. You want to go do something happy. You don't want to just go and sit in your room and stare at a wall and be bored. You want to actually go do something. Even the dishes. You want to get away from that into the normal world again. Fun is preferable. Okay? Fun is preferable. Because that is going to help pull you back away from there, because you do have to be careful of that. Again, shadow work is not a beginner thing. You should already be focusing on your practice, and you should have already built up a measure of discipline before you're doing shadow work, because you have to have the discipline to do it, and you have to have the discipline to pull yourself away, and you have to have the discipline to take control of your thoughts again, because those emotions and those traumas are going to dig that stuff up. Absolutely. And it sucks, but it's a fact of the matter. And unfortunately, if we are on a path to self-empowerment and self-mastery, mastering the mind is one of the key components, right? I've said it on this channel before. You have to master the mind, you have to master the body, and you have to master the spirit. All three things must be mastered. All three things must be trained. All three things need to be disciplined, and all three things need to be empowered. If you're lacking in any of those areas, you need to try and find a way to actually begin doing it. Now, when I say train the body, does that mean I want you going to the gym, pumping iron, and coming out looking like Lex Luger or Arnold Schwarzenegger? No, that's not what train the body means. That's not. Um, it can mean that for some people, but it doesn't. Like for me, train the body. My body is actually very well trained in a lot of areas. Okay. There's a few weak points due to injuries and gluttony. Okay. So I know the gluttony side, even though it's dealing with some traumas and things from the past, I need to deal with that, right? Okay. I can deal with that. I can work on that. I can train that, right? That's easy. Now, some of the other things, I do want to correct some of the injuries and everything. This shoulder here, it's a bitch. I'm not gonna lie. This shoulder has been dislocated more times than I can count. But I can train that. And I've been looking into different things. I like old fashioned calisthenics. When I train for strength and flexibility, I don't really want to bulk. I'm not a bulk kind of guy. I want a leaner, more functional muscle. I'm not worried about bulk. Okay. So I know what's right for me. Like when I go to the gym and I'm looking for gains, I'm looking for how much can I actually lift? How much can I push? What's my push pull? I don't care about the size of my bicep. Okay. I don't. Um, so someone who cared about the size of their bicep and just is looking for bulk, their training regimen would be very different. So you have to look at what it is that you're actually trying to do. Now, I would say everyone needs to have healthy functionality. What that can mean, it can be different for different people, right? Like I got a buddy in a wheelchair. He trains his arms because he has set a goal that if something was to ever happen and he did not have a car or a van, he can travel his ass 8 to 10 miles a day, just vroom, vroom, vroom. Now, I don't know if any of you all have ever been in a wheelchair, but that for a few miles will drop your arms off. So he's mastering and training his body for his goals, right? So I hope that helps some. And I will say, if you are having, like, let's say even outside shadow work, you're having a lot of thoughts that creep in, I would put those thoughts at the top of my shadow working list. I really would. And I say that because there are things in my life that there are thoughts that creep into my head of what's happening here. Okay. And a good example is I have been shot. I think I've said that on this channel before. And I actually think back and I wonder how the person who shot me is doing. It starts as curiosity and then it leads into vengeance. It goes into a darker, vengeful thinking. And I don't want to be that guy. That's not something I want to be. Even at the time of the event, I didn't want vengeance. Was I pissed? Did it hurt? Yes. So those are something that, every shadow working I work on. And over the years, many of them they're gone. They're dealt with. Some of them still linger, but some of them I'm still working on. Some's gone, some's lingered. So I would put those there. I would. Now, if you're having, I'll be honest, if you're having suicidal thoughts, go see a doctor, go see a psychiatrist, get professional help. I'm just some redneck on the internet. I'm talking about the metaphysical side, the spiritual side, meditation, prayer, those kinds of things. They serve an amazing purpose. But I'm not saying don't see a professional. Let's see, Rainbow Orchestra. What a pleasant surprise. I hope I'm a pleasant surprise. Mathis, good to see you. Hey, Drake. Hey, everyone. Sadly having to miss tonight, but dropped in to say, well, at least she was able to drop and say hi. Appreciate it. So yeah, make sure you're, and one of the reasons I want you to go through that list one at a time, I don't want you getting overwhelmed. Now, some people's like, do I have to wait for October? Do I have to wait for, no. Though what I would do is I'd set a time limit. Okay. anytime you're working on any article, because I'll be honest, when I first started shadow working, I was doing shadow working regularly for a couple years before I got a handle on it when I was able to throttle back. It may have been 3 to 4 years actually. I'd have to double check my journals. So, but what I was doing is I was going 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week on, 1 week off. You need to pull out. You need to take a break. And during your break, you need to enjoy what you're doing. And I know that can be hard because we work. Work sucks. I get that. I was working some of the shittiest jobs and hours of my life during this period. But when I took my breaks, I made sure to enjoy those. I made sure to enjoy friends. I made sure to enjoy hobbies. I made sure to do whatever I could to make the best of that week. Now, that's not to say I didn't enjoy my weeks during shadow work, because I'm always doing stuff during shadow work to have fun. But I tried to relax as much as possible and enjoy that week off. That way I'm constantly getting that break. But I was doing that for like 4 to 5 years, and was going that hardcore a good idea? I don't know. I would usually recommend probably for most of my students starting out, do some shadow working for a week, take a couple weeks off, see how you feel, make sure you're recovered before you go back. And again, before you start shadow work, you should already have some understanding of yourself, because you should have some practice in there already. So consider those factors. All right. Any questions? Let's see what we got in here. No problem, Zazzy. Sorry I couldn't help more than that. Angela, good to see you. It's always nice to see you here. No, we're not discussing The Walking Dead here. It's not really a TV show I ever followed either. Rainbow got pizza and water. Glad to be here. Pizza and water sound pretty good. I'm actually fasting today myself, actually. See what we got. Bitkey, Drake, thank you so much for the concern, but I'm not suicidal. Was just talking about intrusive thoughts. For example, I walk past someone on a ladder and I'm like, fall off, when I don't want that. Yeah, those happen. Everyone, they happen. Like, I make the joke, I'm allergic to stupid people. There's a part of me that genuinely wants to punch stupid people, just genuinely. And now, when I say stupid people, let's be very clear. I'm not talking about someone who's never had the opportunity to learn a thing. I'm talking about someone who can't learn a thing. I'm talking about people that they choose to live dumb. That's the ones that annoy me. I just want to be clear on that. But at the same time, I don't do it. And over the years, I've gotten better and better and better at it. Well, and I had to. I'm up here on freaking YouTube and the internet. Y'all have any idea how many bizarre questions I get emailed every week? Like, had I not gotten hold of that intrusive thoughts that, like you're talking about, Vicky, I couldn't do what I do. I couldn't do it. Just could not do it. So, it's a pizza fast. Well, I guess. I mean, now I'm just doing a water fast for me. Many of you know I did a lot of research on fasting and stuff and its effects on my practice. And so I'm utilizing that along with a few other things. Probably looking at doing some with my shadow work. We'll see. Currently, I've got a goal of 24 hours. I may do a 48. It's been a while since I've done 48. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. All right. Any questions on shadow working? Let's go first with any questions on shadow working. Um, and I will again state that we are going to be doing a series on more advanced topics over at Local. So if you are interested, check that out. Um, Sounds like Pisces. I'm not a Pisces, I can tell you that. But then I don't put a lot of credit into horoscopes and signs. I really don't. Um, Sending good energy for your fast. You can do it. I believe in you. Oh, 24 hours should be easy. If I decide to extend to 48, that's actually the one I'm kind of curious about. Um, I just stay busy. That's one reason like my energy is so high today. Because when I fast, my energy goes whoop, and I love the energy buzz. So I can actually say fasting for me is quite enjoyable. Also ramps up my uh, metabolism. That's the word I'm looking for. Metabolism. Good job, bro. Keep going. Thank you, mate. Thank you. It's so nice to have an encouraging community. And I wasn't saying you were suicidal, Vicky. I was just putting that out there as a general conversation. Because if anyone watching this is having intrusive thoughts or anything, I want to make that clear. Because as I've said on this channel a lot, I do not believe magic or spiritual healing replaces modern medicine. I don't. If you do, that's you, but I will never recommend it. And I've stated my reasons. Rainbow wants to know, how can dragons assist in shadow work? Okay, so assuming, Rainbow, that you're past the initial shadow work, because if you're just starting shadow work, don't get an entity involved because they're actually going to throw more at you. So you need to have some experience at shadow work before you get entities involved, in all honesty. Okay? And if you missed that section, go back and rewatch. I talk about that a little bit. Now, once that's the case, dragons can help quite a bit. And starting out, I would work with the first 4 rulers if you are a dragon magic practitioner. They're going to be the easier ones to work with. And those 4 elements touch most, if not all, of our modern life in enough ways to help you in those ordeals with shadow work. And the way I would do it specifically, in the case of, let's look at it from Dragon Magic 101's perspective, you got your guardian dragon helping. Your guardian dragon can help in any shadow work. Quite literally, so can your co-magician. And if you're just starting to work with dragons and you're at the point where shadow work is not too slippery a slope for you, I would highly recommend getting them involved. I really would. Mine work with me every time I'm doing shadow working. Now, if you want to go to the rulers, you're going to ramp that up. They're going to start throwing, like, you go from a snowball fight to an avalanche, okay? Just telling the truth here. You go from a snowball fight to an avalanche. And you need to be ready to handle that. But they're going to deal more specifically with issues that tie more specific with their element. So you want to take the list, you want to talk to the ruler, see what on that list they feel they can help you with. Now, I have found that just because you don't think that what's on that list necessarily matches with one of those 4 rulers, I like to go around and do a working where I talk to each one individually and get their perspective anyway, because I find they have a larger perspective than we often give them credit for. And they may not have a lot to say, but they may have that one little tidbit that just, it clicks for you. I've had a 3-hour conversation with Terrafana, absolutely chock full of information and wisdom. Don't get me wrong, massively helpful. And popped over to talk to Ingus Salor, and Ingus is like, well, I ain't got a whole hell of a lot to say about that, but, and he says like one thing, and that one thing clicked into place in a way that just made the entire canvas that Terrafana painted make so much more sense to me. So much more sense on a deeper level. But his would not have been as useful without the other. So I do always like to talk with all 4 of them to get the perspective. If I'm working with them, honestly, starting out, stick with your guardian and your co. Stick with them. Even if you've already worked with the rulers, don't jump into shadow working with the rulers if you've never shadow worked with dragons, which by asking that question, I'm assuming you haven't. So start with your guardian and your co-match. Seti the Red. How does shadow work? Not liking people. Like, I serve with an open heart and help others and have gratitude. I just don't like many people. You're not required to like people. There's a difference in liking someone and having compassion, right? Like you said, you have an open heart. Do you actually care about your community? If the answer is yes, fine and dandy. You don't have to like the people. I know a lot of grumpy old hermits that technically don't like being around people. They don't like dealing with people, but they are some of the kindest and most generous people in their community, because they do care about their community. The two things are not necessarily always connected. I don't have to like you to care about you. I don't have to like you to be compassionate. That's not a requirement. Just like respect. Like, you got a lot of people running around demanding respect. First off, no one is just, you don't get to just demand respect. It's just little life hack into the world of Drake. If you demand respect from me, you already showed me you're not someone that deserves it. Respect is earned, right? So I don't have to respect everyone in my community. Okay, that's up for each individual to earn. Just like I don't have to like everyone in my community, and I don't, but I do a lot to help my community. And I genuinely do care for my community. Does that make sense, Sadie? Hey, Drake, my name's pronounced Kristen. Thank you. Somebody's been watching the channel and knows I do not pronounce names well. Just to let you know, wanted to say that forgiving yourself is important in shadow work too, forgiveness in general. It is. It is. There's a lot of things in shadow work that you're going to deal with that comes up, and you got to be able to forgive yourself for. So good example for me is there are a lot of things that I did that led to my current condition. And I have to actually let those things go. I have to forgive myself because honestly, there was a time and a place where I was a different person. Same thing with a lot of injuries. There's also a lot of burnt bridges. You know, I could dwell on those and I can wallow in those. But honestly, even looking back now, like, there's been plenty of people in my life I've cut out of my life. And they're like, years later, it's creeped up because, you know, I've got a lot of friends passing on, whether through natural causes or not. And it's one of those things where the fewer your friend circle gets, the more you wonder about the ones that you cut out, right? And those things were eating up at me. They really did. They would eat at me. At the same time, you know, when something's eating at me, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to examine it. So once I realized those were eating at me, you can bet those were on my shadow work list. And I did a few things. I examined the entire events around what had happened and why I cut them out of my life. And it's very clear to look back and see that there is no good that could have came from them being in my life. So I had to forgive myself for cutting them out because, you know, loneliness and mortality, you know, you're starting to see the tunnel. Even if you're not seeing the end of it, the tunnel is very, very much, you're aware of it. And you have to forgive yourself because you're just carrying that baggage. And that's just one of a few. My mentor, when he passed away, hands down, the weekend he passed away, him and I was supposed to go fishing. We both canceled plans, and he ended up taking a job, and he died on that job that weekend. And I'm not going to lie, for many, 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 many years, that ate at me I blame myself entirely for what happened to him, because I kept saying, if I had just made the time to go fishing, he'd still be here. That was exactly what replayed in my head and in my heart and in my core every freaking day. And He was a Christmas baby. His birthday was on Christmas, so that just made the holidays that much worse for me. And it was something that I didn't even realize how much it was eating at me. But it took a lot of years of shadow working to get through that one. It really did. You have to forgive yourself. He made his choice. Yes. I made my choice. Yes. There's no one to blame for that except, well, okay, maybe not, but it's not either of the two of us. So you do have to be willing to forgive yourself, and you have to be willing to let go of the bitterness and the hate and the vengeance toward other parties if it's there. You are absolutely correct. Angela, if anyone's having any bad thoughts or bad days, you will make it. I believe in you. Yep, that is true. I actually do. Yeah, all right. Let's see. All right, we got a few more minutes. This is actually a really long shadow working conversation. Sorry I got derailed a few times there, but that's okay. Let me know if you got the questions. We still got a few minutes. Also, if you're here, give us a thumbs up. It does help us with that pesky algorithm. And while questions are coming in, do remember we are trying to get to where we are supporter funded entirely, so we don't have to worry about YouTube monetization and all that horseshit. Just in case, because you know what? I'm hoping. I said it before. All the rumors about monetization and censorship and crap. I always hope those are BS, right? I always hope they are. I really do. But I also try to think ahead. I try to be proactive and think ahead. And I'm not going to lie, there's a few things in the pipeline that do worry me if they're true. And then there's a few things that's been said on live public TV. If those things actually happen, those things should actually end the channel. I'm not going to lie. Some of those things could end the channel. So I have concerns and worries. And I'm trying to do everything I can to make sure we don't end. So that's one reason the locals community has become such a important aspect to working Dragon Mystic now. You never know how long. Yeah, that's right. You don't. And, I was young when he passed. I'll be honest with you. We're never promised tomorrow. Hell, I'm not promised 10 minutes from now. And that's one reason, like my wife, I tell her every day I love her. Like I have this is going to sound either sad or sappy. I don't know which. But like if I go to sleep and I don't tell my wife good night, I cannot fall asleep because I have to tell her I love her and good night. Because there's this weird paranoia that tomorrow won't come, and I want to make damn sure she knew it. I know it's sappy, it's goofy, it's sad and pathetic, I don't know. But that's just who I am. I want to make sure the people in my life know I appreciate them. Right? And that's also why I don't waste, like if I realize there's a friend or an individual in my life and I'm the only one ever reaching out, if that's an entirely one-way friendship, I'm very quickly going to start pulling back and it will go to zero. Because if I start cutting back and they're not reaching out and putting in time to that friendship, then you know what? I'm going to make time for other things. I really am. Because life is too short to waste it on stupid people, bullshit people, toxic people. I mean, the world's full of asshats. They really are. Find whatever your small circle of friends is, find the ones that are good and true and solid and dependable and nurture those, appreciate them, enjoy them for why you have them, right? Because I can tell you right now, my circle, in truth, my original closest circle of friends, the ones that I would consider like family and brothers, have all passed away. They have. So the small circle of friends I have now actually I found those after that original group was hanging out. Some of those were still alive when I was meeting some of these others. You all have heard me mention Nitro before, so he's definitely one of the newer ones. but I've still known him for a few years. So make sure you enjoy those friendships while you got the opportunity. Let's see. I always kiss my son and wife and tell them I love them before I leave the house. That is a good practice, Immortal. That is. Me and my wife, we have a morning routine and tradition. And those traditions, those routines, they are so important. They really are. Like, I get up early, I start doing things. I may turn on a video game, I may watch a few YouTube videos, but I'm going through my normal morning coffee routine. She's waking up. I do not go to the office until she leaves. And I make sure I'm there so I can tell her goodbye, tell her to drive safe. She lets me know when she gets there because I'll be honest, if you live in a military town, people do stupid stuff like, I don't know, try to park their car in the barber shop. So, I like to know that she's safe, those kind of things. Simple little things, but it's the little things that matter most, right? The big show of grandeurs, those are something plotted and planned, and usually they're going to make me suspicious. Like, it's like, what did you do? It's the little things that really matter. It truly is. So you keep doing that. All right, Immortal's throwing clocks at me. The daily routines and rituals we do like that are their own kind of magic. Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. They really are, because my wife is military. She will deploy. There's times where I will go a very long time without seeing her. And I know how important it is to make use of the time we have. I really do. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to wrap up here before we run really long over. Hopefully you all had a good time. If you think of any questions with shadow work, whether you're here or on Rumble, feel free to put the questions below the videos, and I will try to answer those either in another coffee hour or I will type up an answer if I can. I really suck at answering questions in type, especially complex ones, but I will do my best. If I flub it up enough, I'll just answer it during the live stream. Again, a reminder, coffee hour is on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday currently. And it's probably going to stay there, to be honest with you. And we try to do streams over at Locals on Tuesdays and Thursdays right now. All right. So for those of you who are over at Locals, I'll probably be seeing you tomorrow. All right. Everybody have a great week. Take care. Good night.